everybody, this is Pam Sterling with the Outrageous Joy Raw Food Adventure. Welcome. Hey, you know, I'm home for the holidays this Christmas with my family, and we're getting ready to enjoy a holiday meal tonight, and I am making my favorite raw winter dish, and that is a butternut squash cranberry couscous. It actually was originally named butternut squash rice by Annie at Annie's Raw Food Kitchen, who originally developed this recipe, so Annie, thank you. But this is really my favorite, and the reason is that it has that heartiness that you really want in the wintertime, and it also has a lot of bold flavor. In fact, this is one of those dishes that you can make the day before, or you definitely want to try to make a couple hours before so that those flavors blend and it really brings that boldness when you eat it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start out with some butternut squash, and if you don't know what butternut squash looks like, I've reserved a little bit of the squash. I used most of it, but it is this sort of light yellow, kind of buttery yellow look. It has sort of a long neck to it, and if you cut the neck off, you'll find that there's no seeds in there, so I often like to use that for this dish. And then if you get down to the bottom, you're going to need to scoop out those seeds that are down in there. But you really don't need a very big squash for this. We really only need a little, around 4 to 5 cups of squash. And usually a squash this big I actually got 2 servings out of. So that's the butternut squash. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this in our food processor, and what we want to do is go ahead and use the S blade on that food processor. Let me just get it down here properly. Use the S blade on the food processor, and as we blend this, I'm going to do this in batches because this food processor is sort of a bit of an antique, so I don't want to overload it. So, and you may need to do that too if you have a smaller food processor. So what we're going to do is we are going to just pulse this until it gets down to sort of rice size as the blade spins through and chops it up. So here's our first batch. Going to run it a little bit more. It's not quite small enough. Okay, so now we have it just the right size. You can see here it's actually, you know, chopped up really nicely, real small, nice sort of couscous or rice size. And we're just going to toss that in our bowl. And this is one of those things that I would have never thought you could eat butternut squash raw, but it's actually quite good and very flavorful, and this dish definitely proves that. So we're going to do a second batch here of our butternut squash, the second 2 cups, and you want to cut these probably into I would say 1 to 2 inch squares, and then that will help to be able to chop it up finally in your food processor. So here we go with our second batch. So we're just going to toss this now into our bowl. And again, you know, nice and small so that it's about the size of couscous or rice. So that's the base of our salad, or our entree. Next we're going to put in a cup of dried cranberries. You can also use dried cherries if you happen to have those on hand. And, you know, in a pinch you could also use raisins if you wanted to. So just feel free to sort of change this up a little bit. Right, we're just going to chop up now our walnuts. We have a couple walnuts, and I'm just going to throw those in with the with where we have the butternut squash. We're going to chop that up. Make sure the walnut is chopped pretty finely, so just gave it an extra little whirl there. And this again is part of what gives it all that body that you really want in a winter dish. Yum, it's already starting to really smell fantastic. So I'm just going to give this a little bit of a mix already. You can see it's just, you know, it's got all those great winter colors with the red of the cranberries and the orange of that, the beautiful orange really, of the butternut squash. So next what we're going to do is add about a half a cup, you know, of cilantro. And I'm one of those people who love cilantro. I know there's some people who, it's kind of one of those herbs that you either love it or hate it. And I love it. So I would say half a cup or more to taste. Just have some really nice cilantro leaves here. Don't want to really throw in the stems, but you want to throw in the leaves and give them a nice chop through. I'm actually going to put in just a little bit more, just again because I'm a cilantro lover, and so I want to make sure it has a lot of that really nice cilantro taste in it. So plus we're a pretty big bowl going on here, so we want to make sure that we have enough cilantro to give it that flavor we want. Okay, so we're just going to add our cilantro in there. Now the next thing is I've already chopped up some onions, so yellow onions, just about a half a cup of yellow onions. You want to make that a pretty small dice because you don't want someone getting a big chunk of onion in their mouth. And then we're going to add our spices in. So the next spice, the first spice we're going to add in is a tablespoon of cumin, either seeds or fresh or freshly ground cumin, not freshly ground, but ground cumin. And if you use ground cumin, I would say go a little less than a tablespoon, but if you're using cumin seeds, go ahead and use a full tablespoon of seeds. And then we're going to use a tablespoon of coriander as well. Now coriander is just the sort of dried herb version of cilantro. So if you didn't know that, there's a little trivia for you. So we're just adding a tablespoon of coriander, which is just a wonderful flavor. That's one of those that's also used a lot in Indian cooking and that sort of thing. We're going to add in 2 teaspoons of salt. I like to use Celtic sea salt. If you haven't used Celtic sea salt before, it's incredibly flavorful, and so you want to use a couple of teaspoons of that in your dish. And then we're just going to add freshly ground pepper to taste. Everybody has their own amount of pepper that they like. So then we're just going to toss it all together. Again, now that we've added the cilantro in there, now we've got the orange plus the red and the green, even making it even more sort of that festive sort of holiday look. Alright, and that's all there is to it. We're just going to, now that we've tossed this, we're going to let this sit in the fridge a little bit. And that is our butternut squash cranberry holiday couscous coming to you from up here in Washington State in the United States. And I want to thank you for joining me. Give it a try. Let me know what you think, and until next time, be well.